What's up everyone, this is Mark from AMT Motorsport, and today we're going to be talking about camber kits, what they are, how they work, if you need one, and we'll finish the video with a quick installation example on our C8 Corvette. A camber kit replaces the round factory control arm eccentrics with something with a positive stop. The factory eccentrics are held in place only with clamping force, which can be overcome with sticky tires and high cornering loads on a racetrack. This video is a great example showing what happens when a factory round eccentric lets go rapidly. The slipping eccentric removes all the negative camber and therefore grip from the tire, vastly disrupts the toe, which translates to an immediate loss of control at high cornering force. After I changed my underwear, I quickly went about designing a camber lockout device that would incorporate a positive locking edge while still allowing some adjustment of the eccentrics without the hassle of having to completely remove the lower control arm bolts. That led us to this design, which has basically become the standard for the Corvette platform. And while there are various knockoffs out there which pay homage to our design, this particular solution did not exist until we invented it. We have them available for every generation and model of Corvette from the C5 up to and including the new C8. They all have between 4 and 10 adjustment positions, but make no mistake that these kits are not nearly as easy to align as the infinitely adjustable round eccentrics that come from the factory. You should be taking your Corvette to a qualified race shop to have your car aligned after installing our kit. By creating a positive stop within the cradle, the control arms no longer rely merely on clamping force to keep your control arms from moving. As we've shown, a sudden movement leads to a very dangerous situation, but slow movement of these control arms will ruin your alignment, tires, and lap times. That's right, I said lap times. If you do not semi-regularly take your car to autocross or road racing events, you're in very little danger of your factory eccentrics slipping, and you do not need to add a camber kit. It's not worth the hassle to install these to impress anyone at Cars and Coffee. And sorry, Canyon carvers, you're not putting enough load into your street tires on public roads to facilitate a need for a camber kit. But if you're a dedicated track junkie like myself, a camber kit will likely be right at the top of the list of supporting mods you need to keep your car fun and fast on a racetrack. We offer these optional control arm studs if you're going to be changing your alignment on a regular basis, say between racetracks or for street and track settings. The steel inserts in the frame can wear out over time with the constant torquing and untorquing on the upper control arm bolts, so those studs replace them to mitigate any wear on those threaded inserts. So we talked about the camber kit, we kind of described how it sort of works. Right now we're actually going to take the time and throw a front control arm camber kit on our C8 Corvette here. I have Alexander Lemmy here, who is both my right-hand man as well as the engineer who developed the camber kit for the C8. He's going to take us through some of the steps. And what we're doing here on the C8 is not vastly different than what's on the C5, C6, or C7. So when we show you this thing here, it's all going to translate to all the other Corvette platforms. All right, so on the front of the C8, we've got this sexy little plastic air dam, which will need to come off for you to access that side of the bolt. By the power of cinema, boom, it's off. Now we removed all the torque bits ahead of time. I got a splitter going on this car very shortly, so my whole front end of my car is pretty much torn apart. But as you can see, the way it was, that's whatever. It's going to be hard to get to that bolt with this cover in place, so you're going to need to take those guys off, at least on the C8. All right, Alex is going to pick up a 24mm socket and a breaker bar, because on the C8, these M16 bolts, I believe, are torqued like 160 foot-pounds, and he's going to make it look easy because we cheated and did a little bit ahead of time here to make sure it was good to go. So he's loosening these babies up. He's being very gentle and ginger, which we appreciate. Slapping his ratchet on there. As I've said in my other install videos, I am the shadiest of shade tree mechanics, so I don't ever have the right tools. I wish I had some little air-powered wrench, but Alex is sitting here working the ratchet just fine. All right, so the C5, C6, and C7 front camber bolts, or factory eccentrics, are generally pretty easy to get out. The one difference is on the C8 here. For whatever reason, they installed this bolt what seems like it's backwards. So Alex is going to show you how much fun it is to remove this rearmost front lower control arm bolt.
The trick to doing this is you're going to want to take off the brake line bracket here, and you're going to want to push the brake lines as far up into this little gap here as you can. So we'll pop that off real quick.
Dead battery. Wah, wah, bah, bah.
Far up in there.
So he's moving up his hard brake lines as well as his really, sort of the flexible brake lines.
Yeah, so these have been pushed up a few times, so they usually sit like more like there, so you can really push them up and down.
You're about to see that if those brake lines are in the way, that bolt is not going to come out. Can you see that? Ridiculous. Thanks, GM. So you literally move those brake lines up a ½ inch, and that gives you the clearance you need to pull that bolt out.
There's a little pocket back there, so you kind of have to push the eccentric there all the way back and then rotate it into the pocket. That's a little bit of a challenge.
He makes it look easy because he's done this before. So while we were taking this thing apart, we're like, well, it's either that or grab yourself out the Sawzall and just chop the damn thing off, which you do need to do in the rear of the C7. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Sometimes you also have to push the control arm forward. So you got
Busting out a pry bar.
And just push the control arm forward a little bit, and sometimes that gives you enough.
Oh, yeah. He showed you his tricks to get that rear-facing bolt out. Front one is completely straightforward. Control arm's fairly loosey-goosey in the cradle, no problems there. And we're going to recommend that you do a corner at a time. There's absolutely no reason to rip out all your bolts all across the car. I mean, we are on the passenger side front of this car. Let's install the passenger side front camber kit. There's no reason to, like I said, do the entire car at once. Work on a corner at a time. All right, so C8 camber kit. We've got blue adjusters for the front, and clear goes in the rear. We did that on purpose, so we had a mnemonic device in case you somehow throw these things around your garage floor and say, shoot, where do these things go? Clear in the rear. So we're not going to use those for now. We're going to hand the blue ones to Alex. And the way we got these things engraved, it's okay, so it's worth noting. So if you look at these camber plates, this is essentially like a volume knob, right? When you see max, 1 is max. So as the further this way we go, the less volume we have, the less camber we have. So T1 or 1 is always going to be your max on all the camber kits that we make here at AMT. So he's got himself a matched pair. All he's going to do now,
1 and 2.
He's got a 1 and a 2 to go together. So as you're installing these things, the 1s are going to go to the outside of the car. As long as you...
The one, F1? Or that little one right there. The little one.
The little one.
The F1 and F2 are how we signify the mirrored.
That's just so you know you have a mirrored matched pair of camber plates. Once you've got that all established, bolt goes in. Why'd you put 2 on one side there, bro?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
See?
You're rushing. You can see this. You can see this. Get up close. So we got that there. Put the door block on.
Holy hell, it's raining.
Watch, right, what do you got for washers in there? Oh, it's just another block. They come as a glued set. This one unfortunately came unglued. Okay. Push that in.
All right, so now he's going to try and gently press the control arm out into the maximum extent of his slot with his handy dandy pry bar. He's going to drop it in the 1 setting, and now that frontmost control arm is in the most aggressive camber setting we can get on this car. You do want to check and make sure that your plate on the back matches the plate on the front. Sometimes we'll get questions, oh, can I have a 1 on this side and a 2 on this side? Short answer to that is no, don't do that. You should have a 1 on the front and back side of the control arm cradle. You can, and it will often be encouraged, to have a different number in the back. That's going to how you're going to affect your caster. So if you're a T1 in the front, no reason why you might not be in 2 in the back in order to angle the control arm for caster, but that's really more of a conversation for your alignment shop. We are not an alignment shop. You're installing this thing, but unless you really know what you're doing, you're going to want to take it to a race shop to get your alignment really dialed in properly. Here we are in the trouble bolt area. We're not GM, who decided to put the bolt in the difficult way. We're going to put it in the easy way, which is from the front of the car, pointing towards the back of the car. Hup. Cat right reflexes. Here's your Nordlac. Give it a little smushy smudge. Technical term for push it out to the extent of the control arm slots. and there's one, your most aggressive setting. I keep saying T1 because in our C5 and C6 kits, we have 2 holes. There's a T hole for track and an S hole for street. Didn't really need to be that way on the C8, and it couldn't be because the way they make these cradles, they're all cast. They used to be machined slots, which is why I took a smart kid like Alex, my engineer, to figure out how to really design these things because we don't have any nice straight edges. Everything's working off a draft angle or an angle for a casting. So we have less holes to adjust, but in the end, for real track alignments, it really doesn't matter. You're either going to be, T1, which will probably get you somewhere close to 4 degrees of negative camber, and we're going through those settings right now to figure out where everything really winds up. But again, between 1 and 2 and 3, probably between 1 and 2 for your track settings, but really up to the alignment guy to get all that stuff dialed in. Of course, now that we've got our eccentrics in place, our camber kit is all locked in nicey, put your brake lines back on. One thing you don't want rattling around on a racetrack, of course, is your brake lines. All right, so here we are in the back of the car. I know I said that clear is in the rear, but as you can see, ours are blue. This is the prototype set. Yours will actually be clear to try and make things a little bit easier to digest. But one thing I wanted to point out, C5 and C6 do not have an adjuster back here. This is just a bolt right through, so that's one less complication. The C7 does have dual adjustment back here, which just makes setting your caster that much more of a pain in the butt. So of course our camber kit comes with all that. The removal of the bolts on the C8 is straightforward. For the rear, and the C7 it is not. Unfortunately, in the C7, the way they had put the cradle in here is a gas tank. It doesn't exactly translate because it's a different model, obviously, but in the C7, we'll put an inset of the photo up on the video here. The bolt's got to come out that way, and it can't. It'll literally hit the gas tank. So you either got to drop the cradle to get the bolt out of the way, or you got to get up there with a Sawzall and just chop the damn bolt off. And that's truly the only way you're going to get that bolt out on a C7. So that's of note. Please be sure to read the instruction manuals we include with these things because we got all the little tips and tricks you're going to want to know. And that's kind of an important one. Thanks guys very much for watching the video. I hope you found it both scintillating and titillating. And I will see you at the track.